spend what you don't have. And that is what has been happening. The government has been printing money to meet its obligations because they did not have a plan to get the money to spend in accordance with the inflation that we have. So if the budget that was made in April was 48 trillion, and you now have 11% of inflation, it means that you no longer need 48 trillion, but you need 48 plus 11%. Because the prices at which you are going to spend have been hiked beyond what you budgeted for. And therefore, if such a situation arises, you must adjust your budget in accordance with the reality, which we were warning about long time then, that you have to change your expenditure outlay. You cannot continue consuming as if life is normal. That the money that goes to State House, the 2 billion per day, continues going to be spent when you are not earning it, when everything is spiraling. All governments, when there is inflation, they make adjustments accordingly, including adjusting the payments people who earn salaries get. You must have a salary enhancement to catch up with the inflation. Because if you were buying posho at 2,000 a kilo, now posho is 4,000 a kilo, and you are still getting the same salary, it means that your salary has been cut by half. And that means that you cannot survive. So when there is a situation like we have, it is mandatory. There is a requirement, mandatory requirement, to review the budget outlay. But our people, because they have now become stuck to what they are used as their way of life, the whole country must suffer to maintain the way of life of a few parasites in the country. They don't know that there is a crisis. Recently you had, I think one of your journalists, who raised an alarm on hiring of new staff in Parliament. About 200 who were hired in Parliament. Adding, and many don't even have what to do, because they are replacing those whom they don't like. But those they don't like, they can't sack them immediately, so they are on katebe, and they are employing new ones. And the expenditure continues all over the government, directly impacting on public servants, what they earn, because once you print money to meet that expenditure, you are taking it out of the pockets of everybody else. And that's what has been happening. Until recently, when I think they realized it was getting completely out of hand, when you had them borrowing from money lenders abroad. The borrowing we have just had is a borrowing from money lenders to sustain a way of life of the parasites of Uganda, while the country continues to descend into untold pain and suffering. In such a crisis, to borrow money at 15% in euro, scandalous to say the least, and borrowing it to feed precisely the same type of outlay of expenditure that they were used to spend on in better times. So, everybody now must tighten their belts indeed, like they said at the beginning, except themselves. And the tightening will break more and more people. You have a healthcare crisis that is worsening. Even when they talk about Ebola, that there is an epidemic, you don't have 85 billion to spend on the epidemic. You had the Minister of Health lamenting that since the Ebola outbreak started, no money has been released. So Ebola is not a priority. But classified expenditure remains a priority. So most of the money we are borrowing from money lenders is now still going to classified expenditure, secret expenditure in State House. And we all know what that secret, it's an open secret, how that money is used. So we are simply high to the country. The continuing worsening of the crisis as a result of not adjusting to the crisis that we have. The second, so we have had casualty of the Minister of Health, which is now clear. Education. This announcement you heard that because of Ebola, schools will now close from the 25th of this month. This is not an Ebola closure. It's an economic crisis closure. Just like the 2-year closure of health, which was called COVID closure of schools for 2 years. It was not a COVID closure, because eventually when they opened the schools, nothing had been done different from what was there. It was an economic closure. They wanted to use the money of education into other things. And this is why our schools are being closed now. Because it is, of course, ridiculous to say that Ebola is spreading in schools, but you will only close them on 25th. So what is happening between now and 25th? There is no spread of Ebola now between now and 25th. Ebola will only be spreading between 25th and 8th of December. That's when Ebola will be spreading. It's ridiculous. Moreover, control of Ebola is even easier in regulated environments like that of the school. Once you send them to now spend the whole day roaming and playing amongst themselves and doing, that is the more unregulated environment in which the spread can get much higher. In any case, if they are those with it in the schools, they will then take it to their home areas like we saw in the COVID case. So our education continues to be very negatively impacted because of the reckless expenditure and budgeting of the state. In fact, count alone of education, we want to soon mobilize the whole country in terms of the parents. Because you see, education is too important to be left to the junta, to be managed by the junta. Education is our survival as a people. We cannot just leave it to Mrs. Museveni and the other members of the junta. So we are going to be calling upon parents to organize nationally to fight for their children. Because as of now, parents are only organized around the school. Parent Teachers Association, they only have an organization around the school. That cannot impact policy in the country. You have teachers organized nationally, and from time to time, they complain about their conditions of service, and they go on strike. And when they go on strike, some things change a bit. But they are striking for their own conditions, not for the conditions of the children. You cannot have a country that budgets 2,000 shillings for a child. For a child's education, that you are budgeting 2,000 shillings. And that child will compete with other countries where a child is budgeted for $3,000 for your 2,000 shillings. We live in the same global economy. I'm not saying that we can pay at least immediately $3,000 per child. But paying $2,000 per child is criminal. Or $20,000. That's how many dollars? About $5 or so, $6 for a child. So, lack of adjustment has directly impacted on our children again. Our children being sent home. Who spent years outside the school? 2 years. Now as they are trying to work against all odds to recover, you are still cutting short their term. So parents of Uganda must unite and say no. And this is why we say that these struggles are not partisan. The impact of this is not going to be felt by FDC parents or NUP parents, but even those who consider themselves yellow, their children are being impacted. Mobilize all our people around. The other impact of this is the one driving this. The crisis, lastly, there are many things it is doing, but of those we have chosen now an attempt by the regime to focus the country and especially its elites to the next election. Focusing everybody to 2026. First of all, by their own gimmicks, that Muhoozi is coming 2026. Muhoozi. Then after some time, no, the father is also coming. The father is coming now. Now it is the father. Now is it the father? Is it Muhozi? You know, I think the mother is also likely to come up. Now, no, it seems the mother is also. Oh, and then once they start that, then they start now. So who else is coming? Who from the opposition? Now who is coming? Let's see now. We need to be Chagulanyi. We need to be the other one. We need. So they want to create a mood to divert the country from this crisis and focus everybody on a useless timetable of 2026. Because we all know that 2026 will not achieve anything, will not change anything, will not bring anything. If we get 2026 as we are, we all know that Museveni will be the candidate, and the guns will be out, and the announcement will come as usual, and the same story continues. But you find the people now, me I'm team MK, team what? The team, or there is no team. It's all hoodwink for the people of Uganda to be diverted from this crisis. And we must call upon our people to totally ignore this nonsense of whether it's Muhozi, whether it's his father, whether it is his mother. Forget all about that nonsense. Let's focus on how we get out of this crisis. We must focus on getting out of this crisis, surviving as a people. I will, in my winding up remarks, touch on how to do that. But so, this is one area we wanted to highlight, the economic crisis that continues to create all these consequences for health, consequences for education, consequences for human rights, consequences for the politics, and how we need to respond to them. The second and last area of concern for today, once again, it's also related to the crisis actually, but not entirely, is on the use of our national forces, the UPDF. Because, again, in October last year, we pointed out that it was a wrong decision to deploy our forces into Congo. And we gave reasons why our forces should not be deployed or should not have been deployed in the Congo. And now, I'm sure you have seen the Congolese protesting against Uganda's presence in Congo. Congolese on the streets protesting against Uganda. Now, so there is a problem because Uganda was saying, no, they are going in agreement with the Congolese. I don't know which Congolese they were talking to. Because Congolese are protesting against our country, sister country. Because Congolese and Ugandans are brothers and sisters in every sense, just like Kenyans, just like the people of Rwanda, just like the people of Sudan. They are our brothers and sisters. So for a situation to arise where there is a public demonstration, not once, not twice, against us in Congo, when we are paying so heavily to deploy our forces in Congo, ostensibly to deal with the rebels that were causing problems in Congo, but also who came from here, is most concerning. And to make matters worse, I'm sure you must have read a formal position taken by the special senior presidential advisor on security operations. On his official communication platform, and this is what he said. One of the rebel groups in Congo, but which, as you know, was domiciled here for many years, M23. We gave asylum to M23 fighters here in Uganda. I think that was in 2014. After they had been defeated by a force of Tanzanians and others in Congo. They ran here and we gave them asylum. After some time, about 2 or 3 years ago, the country was informed that they had disappeared from their camp. A camp in Uganda, that they had disappeared. They even said at some stage that they had caught a few and they paraded them, whom they caught at the border. I don't know where those are. But M23 has been one of the forces in the recent past causing war against the government of Congo, which prompted the East African community nations to sit in Nairobi and make a resolution that they now send an East African force to go and deal with the rebels in Congo. And the different countries are busy assembling troops to go to Congo to deal with the rebels there. Prominently, I believe, including M23. And M23, by the way, is the rebel we have a border with now. At Bunagana, in Kisoro. On the Ugandan side is the Ugandan security forces. On the Congo side is M23. So they are our neighbors, formerly. The ones the East African people are trying to mobilize to deal with. But now, the senior advisor of the president who is his father, and advisor on special operations, said that as for M23, I think it is very, very dangerous for anybody to fight those brothers of ours. Yes, it's very, very dangerous. They are not terrorists, not in capital letters. They are fighting for the rights of Tutsi in the DRC. So, now, this is the official communication. Because he says this is official Twitter account of General Kainerugaba, the Special Presidential Advisor, Special Operations. That is the official communication from there. Please understand, we have absolutely no problem with Tutsi having rights and their rights being protected. We have no problem with that. As we have already said, human rights are universal. Everybody should enjoy rights. But I am not aware that we have Tutsi in Uganda. Tutsi are not a tribe of Uganda. So if there is anybody violating their rights, wherever and they are fighting for their rights, what is it for the people of Uganda to now become part of that conflict? So, our forces in Congo, which were deployed by General Muhoozi, that time, of course, as the commander of land forces, was it a reinforcement of the M23? What? Are we part now of a foreign conflict? Because as we have seen, there are those who are against, those who are for, so we are the ones we have taken a side as a country in the conflict in Congo, and the people of Uganda must pay for that. And do we have even a parliament in this country that all this can go on? And there is no formal question and explanation to us, to the country, as to what is going on here. You had the same general the other day inform the people of Kenya that in 2 weeks his forces could take over Nairobi. We later had an apology from his father. But is this a family matter? our national forces, are they now serving the whims of family delusions? And we pay for that. So I hope at least that the voices in Parliament that seek accountability of the state will require a formal explanation from the minister responsible for defense. All these characters that we are paying a lot of money for, I don't know from who. To find the Minister of Defense has a convoy of people guarding him. At least they should come and answer to us about some of these things. Of course, our troops are not only deployed in Congo, they are also deployed, I think, in Mali. I think we sent a contingent of troops in Mali. In Equatorial Guinea. I don't know whether the ones in Central African Republic have returned yet. So, is the UPDF now operating like the executive outcomes of South Africa as a mercenary force that is rented out to service the demands of the market? So these are very, very grave concerns that we want our country to focus on: the economic crisis and the security, including that of our forces. Maybe on the economy, I didn't especially point out the need to enhance servant salaries. Servants are not working. They are busy looking for how to survive because of the inflation. You must adjust remuneration to the inflation also. So, but like I said in winding up, we did not expect any response from the regime. We did not expect any positive response. And that's why our effort is directly focused on the population, not on the regime. It's the population to solve this problem. The ones who have created it no longer have capacity to solve it. It is the population of Uganda. We haven't been visibly active in rallying the population to do so because, like we told you, we think we need to do some more housekeeping amongst the forces of change so that we all act in concert, that we are not acting in isolation, that some forces are acting, others are sitting. Some are, when they stand up, the other ones are. We are trying to create better coordination of the forces of change so that we also don't confuse the population, that we speak with the same voice and act in the same direction. Now that effort is going on. We believe it's about to be concluded. And you will be hearing more from us now not just as PFT, but PFT and all other forces of change acting in concert. Maybe even when addressing you, we shall be addressing you jointly rather than individually. So that work has slowed our actions a bit, but we are certainly not in some kind of a holiday. We are working overtime to address this, because what will address this eventually, terminally, is for the people of Uganda to regain control over their country. That's what will solve all this. Gaining their sovereignty, regaining their power, redirect their priorities.